The confrontation in D.C. with the Native American and the Catholic school kids raises questions, motivation, why people react in the moment the way they do, and what should happen to those people now. Now, I'm not talking about the people involved in the actual confrontation. I'm talking about everybody else. Please accept that in the actual confrontation, no one was hurt, thank God. I've not seen any credible evidence that the kid involved did or said anything extreme to the man playing the drum. The group taunting the kids was being unduly provocative. Where were the chaperones? Why did a school event involve MAGA hats? Then we get to the heart of it. The face-to-face encounter. The man, Nathan Phillips, apparently wanted to diffuse the tension, and he walked up to do exactly that. And surely the kid, Nick Sandman, he doesn't seem to be afraid, but he did make a choice, and that was to make it into a standoff. That was not a good choice. Was it legal? Sure. That's not my test, and it shouldn't be the test. Here's mine. If that were my son, who happens to go to a great Catholic school, would I like what he did? If I were there, would I have allowed the kids to be in that situation? No and no. There was a disrespected play that doesn't work for me in these circumstances. I don't blame the kids. My concern were the reactions more so. The left and the right almost instantly had equal and opposite reactions. There were reports of extreme misconduct, attacks by the kids, reverb about it being a setup to hurt the kids. The man with the drum was accused of lying and provoking, and then came the president. Nick Sandman and the students of Covington have become symbols of fake news and how evil it can be. They've captivated the attention of the world, and I know they will use it for the good, maybe even bringing people together. It started off unpleasant, but can end in a dream. Isn't that your job? Not the teenager, right? Weren't they out of their depth? Aren't they supposed to be protected from this? Aren't you the one who's supposed to find a way to bring us together instead of exploiting every opportunity you find to divide, railing on the media and the left, propping up the kids as victims? You neglect that they were mainly victims of their own choices and actions. Shouldn't we discuss that? Wonder if the hats had anything to do with your muted response. This play by POTUS is bad for two reasons. One, the kids shouldn't be pawns. They are kids. I'm not excusing their conduct. I don't know who consented to them. I don't know who consented to those hats as a school event. There are issues of behavior for the parents and the school, period. But they're not players in the left-right wars just because of the hat and the confrontation. I do give them a little leeway as kids. All kids, any kids. That's why our law treats them differently and certainly should, even more than it does. The second reason this is really bothersome. Our president hasn't said a word about Steve King and his bigoted, white power-friendly yap. His party, his fellow Republicans, elected officials in Congress, all came out against King. He stayed quiet. But now, when the white kids wearing the MAGA hats get into it with a minority, he's up for it. And what message does that send? You go after white kids, POTUS doesn't like it. Go after everyone else, maybe he'll stay silent. There's a pattern of choices by this president, and we have to call it out because it's not what we're about, especially when and where this happened. Think of this, all of this taking place at the Lincoln Memorial on MLK weekend. The Reverend once told the nation there he had a dream of equality. What happened here? Ain't that dream. There was no violence, but it wasn't nonviolent protest. It was a default to opposing something for no good reason, literally looking for differences, and partisans rushing to weaponize it. This confrontation is the truth in one major regard. It is a true reflection of where we are. We seem to be able to agree on nothing. But I will argue that it isn't proof that all is lost, and that the division, while overwhelming, there is a chance for better, and situations like this are supposed to be part of making it better. Teaching the kids that you got to inject kindness into situations, the power of dialogue, what confrontation should be about. The kid even gets that. In his statements that he's made publicly, he says, I wish we could have talked. I wish this had never happened. He's right. Hopefully, he will never make a choice like this again. But how about the rest of us? When will we decide to handle things better? And you know what we could use? A leader in that regard. That's what a president is supposed to be. And if he doesn't want to fill that job, who's going to step up? Who's going to step up and take occasions to make us better? Because this is not sustainable for the country. It's not a way for us to be our best by any definition. Thank you for watching CNN Tonight and D. Lemon right now.
Chris, we don't share notes. I have notes here because I know you're going to talk about this, and they're almost similar. So if you'll just allow me just
Please.
a minute or two to get this out, and then you and I can discuss it.
Go ahead. It's your show,
okay?
brother. I'm listening.
Discuss it. So you were right. Right on. I think your assessment is right on, but there are some other things. Yes, there was some misreporting here, right? Media is not off the hook. I'm not trying to put the media off the hook. Of course, people, including the media, shouldn't jump to conclusions. The benefit of the doubt should be given to all in our society, not just some, and that doesn't just, and I mean, that means the Covington kids and the Trayvons of the world, if you know what I'm saying, right? It should be given to all. Those black Israelites, they can be horrible. They are horrible. They are racist, they're homophobic, they're anti-Semitic, they're awful, and their behavior was wrong. But that still doesn't preclude a certain behavior of others involved. We want to make it a binary choice between heroes and villains. And some things are muddied, right? There's shared responsibility sometimes. Sometimes there is the perfect victim, and sometimes there's a perfect hero, but that's very rare. Okay, the MAGA hat. The MAGA hat carries a certain connotation that provokes a conditioned reaction from many people, especially from marginalized people. For example, Pocahontas, right? This was a Native American. Their chaperones should be keenly aware of that. Those kids should know that. And let's say that the kids didn't, because they are kids. Their chaperones should be responsible enough to educate them. After all, they are students. Now, here's my personal experience, because I went to a Catholic school. You went as well. You said you're right. I went to a Catholic school. At no point would my school, my chaperones, nor my parents have even fathomed the idea of me going on a school-sponsored field trip with political implications or ramifications, not as a minor, especially when we're at a religious institution where there is a certain expectation of the separation of church and state. They just wouldn't put me in that situation. My chaperones would have quickly removed us from the situation where any of us might be in danger, meaning, let's go stand over here somewhere else to wait on our bus. Why? Because they were looking out for me and my classmates' personal safety and not trying to prove a point. Here's the important part for me. When I got home and my parents saw a photo of me staring down an elderly veteran, especially a member of one of the most marginalized groups in our country, Native Americans, but any grown up, of any ethnicity, I would have had hell to pay. They wouldn't be saying, oh my gosh, but they would have told me and sat me down. Boy, you get your narrow ass out of the way of that old man and show some respect. And don't be embarrassing me or yourself in public and walk away. That's what they would say to me. So they didn't do that, but that's what my parents would say to me. Maybe some of those kids' parents said that to them. I personally wouldn't have felt that sense of entitlement that I could stand there and do that at that age for me and my family. Old people were always right. The parents, the presidents, the conservative media should think less about their 15 minutes and trying to capitalize on this, and they should take Nathan Phillips, the tribal elder, up on his offer to build a bridge instead of building a wall and instead of trying to further separate us. If they think that these kids were unduly criticized in some way, then they should take that opportunity to build a bridge instead of trying to say, whoa, we were right. There were a lot of people who were right in the situation, a lot of people were wrong, and that's including the media and a number of folks. That's it.
I think that's a lot. To me, I mean, the only part of it that is really troubling to me, because we've seen plenty of this stuff. One, it's unusual to see a school contingent embracing a political philosophy, right? So that was unusual. There's reporting that, well, they were there, they were doing right to life stuff, which of course assumes that if you're in favor of women's right to choose and reproductive rights, you're somehow pro-death. But putting the politics aside, even if that were true, and that is part of Catholic orthodoxy, right, wearing the MAGA hat would have still been a violation of endorsing a political position. So I don't get that. And I think if the kids don't have the hats on their heads, you have a very different situation in terms of how it's perceived. And I'm okay tolerating all of that and the early reporting that was wrong, because you can correct it, and that's fine. And there was nothing done here to anybody, and the scrutiny that's coming has been balanced. So you take that as it comes. It wasn't a pretty situation to begin with. But the president poached this position. And he ignored Steve King. You have to see that for what it is. It doesn't make any sense except the most obvious sense. He plays favorites when it comes to bigotry.
Political expediency and to bigotry.
And look, I know people are going to call me. I know they're going to say, you know him, you know me, I wouldn't work for this guy, you know that. Hey, then tell him to stop doing it, okay? Because I don't believe in this in your heart analysis. I really don't. You are what you say and you do.